Ladies and gentlemen, as I always do, we are going to show you an on-paper guide as to how strong the DPS of the Spotlight is. And that DPS of the Spotlight also happens to be the real main protagonist of Honkai Star Rail. That's right. It's not the Fire Trailblazer. It's not the Physical Trailblazer. It's the man, the myth, the motherfucking dragon, Aeon Danny Boy. In this video, it's not going to be a full-fledged guide. I want to do a lot of testing before we get around to that. But you will have a good understanding as to how strong Danny Boy actually is in his dragon form, because that's usually the question we want to know. How strong is this guy? Are they gassing him up? Are they telling the truth? You never know with this community, right? So you'll have a good understanding as to how strong he is with a particular team composition. But honestly, no matter the composition you run, you're probably going to have either a Yukong or a Tingyun on it. And the damage numbers are going to be pretty much the same. Maybe you run both Yukong and Tingyun, who knows? But Silver Wolf is definitely going to play a prevalent role in optimizing his kit more universally. With that being said, let's get into it. Again, I'm going to show you exactly how strong he is with his basic attacks, because that's literally the bulk of his kit. Charge 2, charge 3 basic attacks, build a skill point friendly team around him. GG's. Let's get into it. Okay, so the main two light cones that you're going to see in this video is going to be this one, Under the Blue Sky, and this one, The Fall of the Aeon, which can be picked up in Herta's store and fully refined or superimposed is what they call it in Honkai for the maximum benefits. In terms of how you're going to build them, I strongly recommend Rudolin Arena. And if you don't have a good Rudolin Arena set, you can use a space station as a nice budget option. You do want that 8% crit chance, because you're going to try your absolute best to run a crit damage body if possible. But with that being said, a crit rate body is also incredibly viable. But in terms of getting sweaty and fully optimizing his kit, crit damage body is going to be where it's at. The last thing I want to mention is if you are torn between running a crit damage body or a attack percent body, attack percent is just a little bit weaker than crit damage. I did not put that in the slideshow. It's only a rough draft in my notes. But from what I've calculated, a very good attack percent body is actually not falling behind too far in the damage department in comparison to a crit damage. I bring that up because I know not everybody has a good crit damage piece. Some of y'all probably don't even have a crit damage piece, but maybe you have a good attack percent piece. So you could utilize that as a good filler until you do eventually get your crit damage piece. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, you can mix and match this all the way up. The best option in the game is obviously going to be 4-piece Wastelander, but maybe you need to tune his speed to get 134 speed so that he can go twice and still be last. I've already explained that in previous videos. If you're going to do that, then mix and match until you fulfill that option. But there's also the option of just making him go 1 time per cycle and doing a big nuke, and while everybody else is going 2 times per cycle. I want to make sure I'm clear on these things, because I don't want you to think there's only one way to play this guy. There's plenty of ways to play this guy, but the best way to play him happens to also be the most sweatiest and most difficult to optimize, which is the go twice, but you're the slowest on the team. Okay, so that's going to be the one light cone. This is going to be the other light cone. Now let's get into his multipliers. His charge 2 multiplier is 380% on a single target, 60% on an adjacent target. His charge 3 multiplier is going to be 500% on a single target and 180% on an adjacent target. Now there's a lot of things to discuss here. You can see right now, this is the absolute, not even close, by a landslide, the strongest basic attack in the entire game. It has a whopping 500% multiplier. This right here is single-handedly why attack percent is so important on Imbibitor Lunae. 500% is going to multiply his total attack, right? And then it's going to carry on into the damage bonuses, and they're going to multiply that number. And then the crit damage is going to multiply that number. So it's actually very important that you have a good amount of attack percent on Imbibitor Lunae, all because of this right here. Both of these are very juicy numbers. The next thing I want to tell you about is his skill. When you crown his skill, it's going to give you 12% crit damage, stacking up to 4 times. However, they wanted to throw a little bit of complexity into his kit. This only happens after the 4th hit. Now, his charge 2 only has 5 hits, right? So if you charge up to 2 basic attack, charge 2 basic attack, it's going to give you a 5-piece chicken nugget combo, which means on the 4th hit of that 5-piece chicken nugget combo, you're only going to have a 12% crit damage stack. And then the 5th hit will be a 24% crit damage bonus. So as you can see, that's a bit hard to quantify on paper, which I definitely made sure to not include in my numbers. But on a charge 3, he attacks several times. So that means on the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th hit, you're gonna have 12, 24, 36, and 48% crit damage bonus. That's how that skill is going to work. Anyways, moving on to the next one. This right here, he has a talent that pretty much gives him 10% damage bonus, and it stacks up to 6 times. So in total, that's a 60% damage bonus. Now this is gained, the way it works is it's gained per strike consecutively. So let's go back to that charge 3 and charge 2. Charge 2, you attack 5 times. So on the first hit, that's gonna be a 10% damage bonus. And then all the way up to the 5th hit, 50% damage bonus. And then finally, for his charge 3, 10, 20, 30, 6 hits. On the 7th hit, you'll have an actual full-blown 60% damage bonus. Again, that's hard to quantify on paper, so I did not quantify it like that. And the last thing I wanna mention is that if you were to use his ultimate and then go into his basic attack, his ultimate would apply those ticks as well. So the most beneficial way to get his talent proccing efficiently so that you can take the whole advantage of it is to use the ultimate first and then basic attack, right? That'd be nice. Now A6 is going to be his Ascension 6. It gives you 24% crit damage, and the only condition is they have to be weak to imaginary. This is why Silverwolf is an amazing unit to have with IL Danny Boy. She can make pretty much anybody a weak to imaginary element so long as they're already weak to the quantum element. Then it's pretty much money shot so long as you don't put another random element in the party composition. So mono comps with Silverwolf is going to be a very strong option for Danny Boy. Now that's not to say if you don't have Silverwolf, it's not a big deal. You just have less scenarios to where you could take advantage of that, okay? Trace equals 22.4% imaginary. That means when you fill up all of the damage bonuses in his trace tree, it's going to amount to 22.4% imaginary damage bonus, which is huge. And then finally, he gets another 12% crit rate inside of the trace tree. Now something happened here. They made a last minute change prior to this. This A6 used to be another 12% crit chance, but they switched it to a 24% crit damage boost. This was a nerf. This is not a buff. The crit chance was more important to have, but by swapping it to a crit damage increase, we are now more incentivized to pull on his signature light cone that gives you a free 18% crit chance. Yep, they thought they could slide that one by me, but no, they can't. Anyways, it's fine. It's not a big deal because you still don't need his light cone, even with this. I want to make sure we're clear on that. I just wanted to point that out as well. That used to be 12%, which means he had a base 24% crit chance in his kit, which is freaking cracked, or was cracked. Moving on to the next one. Damage sources. Let's get into the fun stuff. You know what, before we do this, I did that kind of backwards, didn't I? Let's look at the team comp example. In our team comp, we have Yukong, Silverwolf, and Lorcha. This is not the only way to play him. This is just an example. I cannot calculate every goddamn team composition out there. But if you want to swap her out for like a Ting Yun or something, go for it. If you want to swap Silverwolf out for a Ting Yun, go for it. This is just an example. 2 broken kill sets will be in this comp. You can run 3 if you want, but I understand that getting 3 broken kill sets with the right freaking main stats is like a shot in the dark. So I just went for 2 broken kill sets, giving him an additional 20% crit damage as well as the rest of the team. We're not running break effect Silverwolf on this composition. You can, but I choose not to, because if you're running a full-blown Wastelander set, in order for Imbibitor Lunae to get the 20% crit damage bonus it provides in the 4P section, you need to have them weak to the imprisonment, which can only occur on this team by breaking their shield with an imaginary unit. So for that matter, we're running damage Silverwolf instead of break effect Silverwolf. Finally, he's rocking a full Wastelander set. Okay, now we can go back to the damage bonus. Okay, so what are all of his damage sources? We get 12% from Yukong. She has a literal trace that just gives 12% damage bonus for free 99 to the entire party as long as they're an imaginary element. He's going to be rocking a 38.8% sphere, which is going to be the imaginary sphere damage percent. Now, I do want to be clear here. You can use an attack percent if you got good substats on it. It's not going to be as strong as the sphere, but it's a great budget option. Don't feel like you have to have the sphere if all your spheres are dog shit. 20% Rudolent Arena, you get 20% damage bonus to his basic attack. 60% from his talent. We already covered this, but that's hard to quantify. And I'll get into how we quantified it on paper later. 22.4% from his trace, we already talked about that. 10% from the Wastelander set, that's going to be the 2-piece passive. for the 2-piece of the Wastelander, and then 24% from Fall of the Aeon passive. So the cool thing about Fall of the Aeon, you get a 24% damage bonus for 2 turns as soon as you break the shields of the enemy. Danny Boy has 120 toughness damage on his basic attack at charge level 3, which is that's an absurd amount of shield breaking, right? So he can break shields no goddamn problem. So having this uptime is so easy to pull off with Danny Boy. They just have to be weak to the imaginary element, and he will take care of the rest. That's not even including the additional toughness break from his ult as well. So yeah, he truly makes the Fall of the Aeon a cracked free-to-play option for himself. He really does. Moving on to crit damage sources. We have 50% base, that's what everyone has in the game, 20% from the broken kill sets from the team, 48% from his skill, but we did not include that in the total since it's hard to quantify, 24% of the A6, they have to be weak to the imaginary element, that's it, 50% built into his substats. I can't tell you how many times I get people trying to tell me that this is not practical. Bro, it's literally 7 crit damage on every single relic. 7 crit damage. That's not even a roll once. You just have to roll it. You just have to get it as a stat. That's not hard to do at all. I feel like only noobs complain about this. Like, they just don't understand simple math. Like, bro, 7% crit damage on 6 freaking relic pieces. Like, come on, bro. That's a 42% to be exact, right? But one of them's gonna roll and you'll end up having 50%. It's not hard to do. I always make sure my theory crafting is very fair for people to achieve. Yukong at level 10, I believe, she gets a 58% crit damage bonus to the entire team. And then finally, the Waste set, 20% crit damage if they have imprisonment on them. I did not include this, and I did not include this because both of them are pretty impractical to show you as a universal damage factor. So none of these are actually included in this. The only thing that's included is Yukong, which is only right here in this portion. We did calculate them separately. And then this portion is going to include everything else apart from these two. And you can do the math to see that I wasn't lying about that. 50, 50, that's 100, 120, 144. Easy peasy. Finally, his attack percent sources. We're going to be running an attack percent rope. I will test out if the energy recharge rope is better. We will test that out. But for now, let's assume that attack percent rope can work. 20% substats built into your substats. You got lucky and got a couple of attack percent substat rolls. And then 64% from his light column Fall of the Aeon, which is the most cracked shit. That's at 4 stacks. Now you do have to attack 4 separate times to get those 4 stacks. It's not like what is it? The freaking Su Shang light cone from the Hunt Path where per hit is going to give you the stacks. I think it's separate 4 times. So it does take a while to build it up, but it's perma uptime once you do build it up. Finally, Yukong will give you 80% at talent level 10. So in total, 127.2% attack, but with Yukong, 207.2% attack. Let's get into the good part. His attack math, once you take everything into consideration with the Fall of the Aeon, 3,141 attack, but if Yukong's buff is included, it's 4,123 attack. His crit rate is going to be around 87%. This is theory crafted with the understanding that you have 20% crit rate mid-maxed into his substats already. So we got 20% crit rate and 50% crit damage. Finally, 134 speed will enable you to go twice per turn for the most part, but you don't have to do that. If you want to just play the more casual way and just attack once per turn, perfectly fine, okay? That has nothing to do with the numbers I'm getting ready to show you, but it does have everything to do with him being meta. Let's go ahead and go over to the next one. First scenario here is going to be Fall of the Aeon with a crit rate body, 87% crit chance. His charge 3 is doing 73,400 on a single target without considering Yukong's buff, okay? When you throw in Yukong's buff, meaning her attack percent and her crit damage boost and her crit rate boost, all of that, this becomes guaranteed crit chance, and he does 120,000 on a single target. And then to the left and to the right of him, we're looking at these numbers right here. To the right, it's going to be right here with the Yukong buff. To the left is going to be without Yukong whatsoever. This is what I was telling y'all about when I said this dude is absolutely cracked. He's already dealing over 200,000 damage, and that was just one swing. Now, if you don't have 134 speed or 115 with the Ting Yun to boost you over there every now and then, basically, if you're only going one time, then you're doing 220,000 damage in that one time. But if you got 134 speed and he's the slowest on the team, you could turn that 220,000 damage into 220 plus maybe get a charge 2 in there as well. Now we're looking at over 300 something thousand. That's a lot of damage. I don't even feel like calculating it. It's a lot. It's like 350,000 damage. But this is only with Yukong's buffs procced, because if they're not procced, he only has an 87% crit chance. You're bound to miss a few of them. The way his basic attack works is it's not one hit. It's like freaking 7 ticks. That's right. Yeah, 7 ticks for the charge 3 and then 5 ticks for the charge 2. So 87% chance on 7 ticks. You're bound to miss maybe 1, maybe 2. Who knows? Anyways, again, this is just to give you a good rough draft as to how strong he's going to be. And then finally at the bottom, doesn't include these bonuses. So the way I did his 60% talent is I just cut it in half. So I only put 30% of the 60% in here. Since you can't, it's unfair to say he has a 60% damage bonus on all 7 hits, when in reality, he's getting it consecutively 10% at a time. Does that make sense? So it's not exactly accurate to even put 30% in there, but it was too much of a headache to calculate that math. Finally, the 12% times 4 crit damage stacking that only happens after the 4th hit. Again, too much headache, bro. I just didn't even include it in there. So this is to make the argument that he can get even stronger than the numbers you're already looking at, or he is. I just didn't quantify it on paper. So finally, let's look at a crit damage body. We swap out the crit rate body for a crit damage body. Man, I'm talking a lot. Whew, it's a lot of talking, boys. 60% crit rate chance with a crit damage body. So it's much lower, right? And then when you pop the Yukong ult, he can go up to like an 88% crit chance. I want you to look at the average here because this is very important. I don't want you getting okie doked and believing that this is the damage he's doing all the time. Yes, this is the damage he does on a crit strike, which is right here, but he's not crit striking all the time. It's a 60% crit chance. So when we look at the average of a charge 3, 78.5k on average, 100k on average, and then we compare it to the crit rate, it's still doing more damage than the crit rate. So this goes to show you, undoubtedly, crit damage body is going to be the stronger option, but it's also the harder option to build. You need more crit rate in his substats. So that is pretty much what you can expect Fall of Aeon to do with the team composition I just pitched to you. The final things I want you guys to take into consideration is this is with Silverwolf's ult, Silverwolf's skill, and Silverwolf's debuffs all applied, right? If you take all of that away, these damage numbers come down drastically. However, if you swap out Silverwolf for a Ting Yun and give that attack percent and damage bonus boost plus the Bronya light cone, then they're going to come almost not, they're not going to be up as high as this because defensive shredding is just broken. That's why Silverwolf's so broken, but they're going to be pretty close to that. And then she's giving him more battery too, right? So you can't do the Yukong Ting Yun combo, but it's going to be tricky in terms of speed tuning because they both literally give him speed. So it's tricky to work around that one because it can mess up your rotations. But if you're not worried about being a tryhard, it's not that big of a deal. Anyways, let's take a look at the final option. And this option was more for me because this is the light cone I'm using. I'm skipping his Fall of the Aeon because I want to get the other light cone, as I made in my last video, for my Fu Xuan. I want to get the preservation light cone for my Fu Xuan. So I wanted to know, I thought this should do better than the Fall of the Aeon because of the conditions. This is a much fucking harder light cone to optimize on Dan Heng because you have to kill everything within 3 turns. Now I'm not worried because he is killing everything in 3 turns with these damage numbers, but I was expecting it to perform better than the Fall of Aeon, and I was a little salty that it wasn't performing better. Let's get into it. With this, you have a 100% crit chance, assuming you kill everything within 3 turns throughout all cycles. This is going to be his new attack, and this is going to be his new crit damage because he's rocking the crit damage body. When we look at these damage numbers, it's 68.9k on a charge 3 without Yukong. With Yukong, 93.3k. And keep in mind, when I say with Yukong, that's including her ult and her attack buff. If you're only including the attack buff, this is not accurate as well. It's like in between there somewhere. So these are all the numbers you're looking at, right? Now I'm going to go back and let you compare these to the crit rate and crit damage body of the Fall of the Aeon. Okay, so first let's look at the crit rate numbers. Here's the crit rate of Fall of the Aeon. Crit rate body, still higher, but 87% crit chance. If I average this out, the numbers will be closer, but I think the Fall of the Aeon still wins. The crit damage body, we're looking at 68.9k on a charge 3. And then you're looking at 78.5k on average on a charge 3 with the crit damage body. So it's definitely coming out on top, 10,000 more damage on top on average. If you get lucky and land more crit rates, then you're doing even more damage on average. What I will say is the crit damage body obviously has the higher ceiling on the fall of the Aeon, because I only put in 25% crit chance. If you're getting sweaty and really grinding out the domain, you can get a 30% crit chance, which brings the average up even more. But these are the numbers, guys. This is how strong Danny Boy is looking. As you can see, I wasn't exaggerating that in any way, shape, or form. He's looking like he's going to be the strongest DPS in the game. Sorry, guys. I realized I was lagging a bit there. I just closed out everything so I can finish out this video. I'm busy as hell today. We got a lot to talk about. The updates dropping. I got so much things to do to get done. So apologies if my on-paper guide wasn't as informative as they normally are. It's just, there's a lot to get done. But thanks for watching. As always, I hope it brought you guys some value. Take care, and I'll catch you on the flip side.